All right, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Jeff Zeltwanger. I work in the Chief Learning Office in Kansas City, Missouri, and we're very happy you could join us to hear about the IDSS training rollout. We want to give all of you a briefing on this project. We've been working on it for a couple years, and we're nearing rolling it out to all of you, and we're really excited to talk about it and glad you're here to listen in. There'll be a few of us helping out with the webinar today. You have myself, also today Charlie Woodrum, who is a part of the PMO, the Project Management Office, and he's the IDSS Training Initiative Lead. We'll learn a little bit more about the Project Management Office here in a minute. We also have Mark Jackson, who's the overall IDSS Objective Lead in the PMO, the Project Management Office, and also the MIC and WFO Los Angeles, and Chris McKinney, who's the DSS Program Manager in Southern Region, and he's a part of the IDSS Training Initiative team. So we're all going to be taking you through today. A couple of reminders before we begin. You're all on mute, but if you have any questions, please use the questions tab of the webinar, and we'll be monitoring that throughout, and we'll either try to answer the questions as we're going through the webinar, or in the discussion period at the end, we'll try to answer the questions. Another thing that I wanted to state up front is that we will be recording this webinar, and at the conclusion, either by the end of this week or early next week, we'll be providing a copy of the slides and a recording of the webinar out to all hands, so you can all get the information distributed to anyone that may not have been able to listen into one of these webinars. So with that, I'm going to send it over to Mark Jackson for the next slide.
Okay, thank you, Jeff, and good afternoon, everybody. And for you people on the Oconus, good morning still. My name is Mark Jackson. I'm the meteorologist in charge of the National Weather Service office in Oxnard, California, and I also serve as the IDSS Objective Lead under the Program Management Office. Now, the Program Management Office, it's entirely staffed with matrix employees like myself and Charlie, who's the head of the IDSS Training Initiative. Dave Novak is on detail from Weather Prediction Center as a director for the Program Management Office. And the Program Management Office's scope is to lead, synchronize, and integrate and convene, evolve initiatives and projects specifically identified by the National Weather Service Executive Council as the critical path to create flexibility, collaborative tools, and capabilities needed to evolve the NWS. So when you look at the expected benefits of the Program Management Office, we're executing the OWA initiatives, the Operational Workforce Analysis initiatives that support NWS evolution, provide enhanced services to enable a weather-ready nation. So part of all of these initiatives that go into the Evolve NWS, they're all integrated together. And you have impact-based decision support services that includes not only the IDSS training, which is intended to help build the proficiency in our workforce and also help build up our deployment-ready workforce. Also, you're looking at IDSS policy. That's the process of identifying core, deep core partners. All of the offices went through the tabletop exercises to identify those core, deep core partners. We also have the IDSS planning and core service level, which is intended to establish the baseline consistency in IDSS services across the field and centers. And then finally, you have the measuring IDSS impact. And that really is looking at not only the internal performance of our IDSS, but the external performance. How well are we serving our partners? What are our partner actions? And are they ultimately serving the mission and the vision of the National Weather Service? You also have science and technology objective, which is primarily the auto launcher, and which is really kind of taking off up in the Alaska region. Collaborative forecast process, that is heavily driven by the National Blend of Models. There's an operational demo. There's a version 3.0 development. Many of you may already have version 3.0 within your GFE. Also within there is HAVSIMP, kind of simplifying our watches and warnings. Eli Jacks at headquarters is in charge of that. We're trying to bring NAWIPS and AWIPS integrated together. We have national centers working off of NAWIPS, trying to bring that together in one framework. And then finally, the impacts catalog. And then you have the operating model. Todd Laricos is the objective lead for that. Primarily right now, that's looking at the rock rolls and standing up the rock and the regional operations centers across and trying to establish some consistency across each one of the regions for the regional operational centers. There's some other things down the line in terms of looking at ways to kind of unlock and manage the resources to help better serve IDSS. And then last but not least, you have the workforce objective, which is the GS 512 progression. Lisa Love is in charge of that, and that's really looking at bringing everybody kind of, establishing that forecaster database within the offices to, again, ultimately help better serve our IDSS programs. So over the next hour, you'll hear about the IDSS training initiative, of which Charlie is the lead, and he has quite a few people that work within that initiative, and I think you'll like what you hear. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the layout of the PMO there. We appreciate that, Mark, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the IDSS Training Initiative team. Excited to be here with you all. I'm the Regional Operational Services Meteorologist in Pacific Region Headquarters, and we've got a great group of team members that are working on helping implement different parts of this rollout for IDSS training. And one of the, as you look at this list here, you see several different positions of folks from all across the agency, from all the different regions and different aspects of the agency. And one thing you might notice is there's a lot of SUs on here. There's only one WCM, and a lot of people associate IDSS with the WCM position. Definitely understand that. But what you have to keep in mind is that we've had a professional development series team 2 years ago that came together, took in input from all the regions, NCEP, hydro, throughout the agency, and had the opportunity to provide input. So we've gotten input from all different positions in developing this professional development series. And we have, the folks that are on this team have been selected to help implement this by completing very specific tasks, and we're leveraging their skill sets in order to do that. So we've got Chris McKinney, who you'll be hearing from later, helping out. We've got Jeff Zeltwanger, who's with the CLO, you heard from earlier, Amy Fish from Alaska Region, Bill Rosh, Sioux in Sacramento, Al Petrika, Pleasant Hill, Mark Singer in Billings, Seth Denow in Wilmington, Ohio, John Q in Columbia, South Carolina, and Dennis Staley, who's at NCEP. We also have some subject matter experts all across the agency that are helping out with some specific tasks. Those are Tom Dang in Sacramento, Liz Somerville at the Ocean Prediction Center, Kim Runk at the Operations Proving Ground, and Marco Bajorquez at CLO here at the Chief Learning Office in Kansas City. And really it's the objective to make sure that we have a smooth implementation with the rollout of this IDSS Professional Development Series. And you'll hear this referred to as the PDS for short throughout this webinar. So as you look at the different tasks that these team members are working on to help with this implementation, we've got 3 folks that are experienced with the IMET program that will be working with the IMET program to integrate the rollout of this IDSS Professional Development Series with the Incident Meteorologist Training Program to make them fit together. We also have a group of folks at NCEP. We have Dennis Staley and Liz Somerville working on helping make this work for NCEP offices. A lot of the IDSS happens at the local level, at the WFO, RFC, CWSU, at the field level. So much of that happens there, and so the thought of providing support to external partners, what's typically thought of, although that often happens in the field, we needed to find a way to make this work at the NCEP centers as well for some of their high-level national briefings, and also for their internal briefings that they give across the agency and helping support our field offices. So Dennis and Liz will be helping out with that. We've got a team that's in Kansas City actually right now, just down the hall, that are developing the IDSS simulation exercises, which will help supplement this rollout and help employees keep their proficiency as they're going through the Deployment Ready program, which you'll hear about more here shortly. We've got a deployment map and Google site being developed by Tom Dang. Training, development, and needs assessment are occurring from CLO, from Jeff Zeltwanger and Marco Bajorquez. The logo development and design for Deployment Ready is coming from Kim Runk. And then we also have a team that will be working on the development of endorsements. Mark, Al, and Amy will be working on that to help out with this. So some of you may be thinking, you know, we've been providing IDSS for so long, 15, 20 years. We've been doing this. The IMET program's been doing decision support services for over 80 years. And you're probably thinking, why are we putting such a focus on this now? Why the push to formalize this deployment ready program now? And really, the point of doing this is to help make this a fundamental part of our organization, and really establish this as something that we're doing consistently all across the agency. We know that not every office is the same. This is not a one-size-fits-all type of agency, given all the different regional, local needs across our agency. However, we did want to help fundamentalize IDSS for our organization, and we know that folks may have not been able to be on this webinar because they're providing IDSS right now, or they're working active weather right now. Just thinking about that, we've got the Boy Scout Jamboree going on in West Virginia here coming up over the next week and a half, and we've got folks from WFO Charleston, West Virginia providing on-site support to the West Virginia Division of Homeland Security for the Boy Scout Jamboree. So these big IDSS events are ongoing and will continue, and this training will help supplement that and help us develop our skill sets, and Jeff's going to tell you more about that now.
Yeah, so a big piece of this is really getting that IDSS training out, really a critical part. You know, again, as Charlie mentioned, we've been doing this for a long time. We're doing it right now. But the point of the training is really to get everyone to a consistent level of skills. So when we're providing IDSS, everyone's at least starting with that consistent skill level. Obviously, there's varied experiences. Some folks have a lot of experience, but we want to get to that consistent level. And really, we started this training effort probably about 6 years ago now. The first IDSS boot camp was in 2011. And since that time, we've had about 180 people go through boot camp, which is great. Great training for those people that have been able to get through it. But obviously, there are thousands of operational employees in the Weather Service. So we wanted to take what we're doing at boot camp and get it out and put it online so more people can have access to it. And that's really kind of was the starting point for this, to get that information out to all of you in order to help you provide effective IDSS to our partners. So one of the big parts of this is, you know, we're driving. One of the big things is the policy. We're working on getting the policy finalized and getting that out. And the policy will be a big baseline item that we need in order to develop the training, in order to train you what IDSS is in the Weather Service, who are Deep Core partners, how we interact with them. We need to have that policy in place, and we're working toward getting that done in the next several months. That policy will be distributed both externally to our partners using the service description document, and internally to all of you using the policy directive system. So we'll have more information out on the policy, but that's really a good baseline for where we start to develop our training. So moving forward with training, we're really working on 4 different pieces, as you see in the arrow. And I just want to say we've been talking about a lot of different people we've been incorporating into the team. You're seeing names on the slides. From a training perspective and for this entire project, we're bringing in as much expertise as possible. We're working with subject matter experts in the field when we're developing this training, both in the development process and in the review process. From the Chief Learning Office, we want to make sure this training works for you, gives you the skills that you need to provide effective IDSS. So we're incorporating a lot of people in order to do that. The 4 main parts of this are the Intro to IDSS course, the baseline training for all operational employees. We have the deployment training for those that want to become deployment ready, and then the deployment endorsements. And we'll get into a little more detail here on the next slide. So for the Intro to IDSS course, this course is meant for all Weather Service personnel to really talk about why IDSS is important. We're planning on releasing it in the middle of FY18. As you see, as we go through the timeline, the intro is coming a little bit after the baseline training and the deployment training. And the biggest reason for that is really we're waiting, the Chief Learning Office is waiting for the policy to be finalized, because we can't really introduce IDSS and what IDSS means to the Weather Service without having that policy document in place. So that's going to be next year. It's going to be online, 60 minutes or less. And then we get into IDSS baseline training. This is for all operational weather service personnel, and we're going to have who qualifies operational personnel here on an upcoming slide. You can see if you total up the hours there, it's about 26 and a half hours roughly right now. We're looking at IDSS and ICS Foundation. We're looking at partner-focused support and effective communication. And these are going to roll out here in a couple months on September 15th, 2017. And we're looking forward to getting those out to all of you so you can start looking at it. Then we're going to have the deployment training. We have you see PCU there, that stands for Professional Competency Unit. So we have 4 units there for deployment training. And this is really optional for weather service employees. It's for those that want to become deployment ready, who aren't as part of the deployment process. This is going to be coming out on December 1st, 2017. Again, we'll get into more details about this. And then finally is the deployment endorsement. So we're looking at deployment for complex incidents and different endorsements. And we've really just started to look at these, but endorsements would be for the different types of events. So one that exists right now is wildfires. That's the IMET program. So the IMET is the endorsement for fire weather. We have things like tropical, hydro, winter. So we're going to have endorsements for all those kind of events. So people that become deployment ready, go through those first 7 units, can go and get further training to become more specialized in those certain areas. And those are going to be released FY18 and FY19. We really haven't done a lot of work with mapping out objectives and what those are going to look like. So a lot of work yet to do there. But this is another example of a place where we're going to need help from expertise from the field that really know these different endorsement areas to make sure that the training we're providing for them is what someone would need in order to support that kind of incident. So a little more in depth, again, the Intro to IDSS course. This is going to be designed for everyone in the weather service. It's not just about the operational employees that are providing the IDSS to the partners. It's about everyone in the weather service, because all of us play a role in us being able to provide IDSS to our partners. Administrative folks have to do travel orders and support the employees that are providing IDSS. The electronics and IT folks need to keep the equipment running. If we don't have equipment, if we don't have a way to look at the data and gather data and get the best information that we can then put into a forecast and then provide to our partners with IDSS, we're really not giving them the best information. So everyone that supports the weather service, everyone in the weather service is important to this role, and we want to talk about that, and that's what the intro course would cover. So for units 1 through 3, we talked about operational employees. This is a list of who has been identified as operational employees in each of the office types. We try to capture as many of them as possible. So you can see there, and again, we're going to provide these slides so you don't have to remember it or write it down or take a picture. You will be provided these slides, but we go through each of the office types to determine who the operational employees are, and it is based on supervisor's discretion in a few cases. So for the baseline training, again, it's about 26 and a half hours. The topics that are covered are IDSS and ICS Foundation, partner-focused support, and effective communication. This is all online with exercises built into the online materials. It's a combination of items that the Chief Learning Office is developing, also incorporating FEMA courses, IS 100 and 700, and then 230D are the ones that are in the units 1 through 3 baseline training. A question that's come up with the FEMA courses is, if you've already taken them, do you need to take them again? No, you do not. You only need to take them one time. So, FEMA courses are about 12 hours worth of that 26 and a half hours of units 1 through 3. So if you've taken those courses, you've already knocked out half the training. For the rest of the courses that the Chief Learning Office is developing, we're trying to develop them in smaller chunks so they're easier to look at. We understand that there isn't a lot of extra administrative training time in the offices, especially those that are extremely short-staffed, which unfortunately continues to be an issue So we've developed them to be in 15, 30-minute chunks, so you can look at it with a little bit of downtime and you don't have to invest 2 to 3 hours on a shift to get through one course. So we're trying to do that and make it as easy to digest as possible with those smaller courses. And we do have and we'll show it later, it's not on this page, but we do have a Google site that has information about all the PCUs. You can actually go online and look and see what courses are in the units, what courses are coming. Some of them are already available. You can start looking at them and taking them if you want. And a few slides down the road, we will give you the actual address to that. I unfortunately covered it up with the graphic work I did on this one, but there is a Google site that you can look at. Once the units 1 through 3 become available or are released, all of them are going to be in the Commerce Learning Center. That is our official place for storing and tracking training, so you'll be able to access all that through the Commerce Learning Center. The Google site's here now just so until they're released in the Commerce Learning Center, you can go take a look, get a feel for what's in there and what the courses involve. So we have units 1 through 3, which are baseline training for all operational employees. So all operational employees are going to go through those. And then we're going to have a voluntary step if people go through units 1 through 3 and then decide I would like to become deployment ready. Then they're going to go through the next 4 units, units 4 through 7. The units 4 through 7, that also includes a task book, which is patterned after the IMET program. We'll talk a little bit more about the task book later in the slides. And also attending IDSS deployment boot camp, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well. For the deployment ready process, we're also going to employ evaluators and mentors, and the supervisor is going to play the role of certifying someone as becoming deployment ready after they go through the training. So let's dive a little bit more into that. So for units 4 through 7, the deployment training, you can see the 4 units that are there: preparing for deployment, communicating during deployment, risk assessment, deployment tools, and exercise and evaluation. These units are a combination of online modules. The modules are from, again, FEMA. So many of you may have taken some of the modules that are in here already. And then the exercise and evaluation, those are local exercises and simulations that your office would go through. That's part of what the SUs are here working on this week for the program management office. And then the task book and IDSS deployment boot camp would kind of be the capstone, the ending check that you've been able to do everything and have all the skills to deploy. The total amount of time to complete this training right now is roughly 120 hours, which we understand is a lot of time. But we want to make sure that we're covering the objectives in order for us to go out and effectively provide IDSS to our partners on deployments. And that 120-hour number, and last check, the radar and applications course, which is the course we send all the new meteorologists to learn how to use our warning software and interpret radar data in order to issue convective warnings, is about 120 hours or 116 hours. And to go through the IMET program and become a certified IMET is actually longer than the 120 hours. So it's a lot of time, we understand that, but it is comparable to other training programs. And we want to make sure that we get the training and cover all the objectives that we need in order for us to be effective providing IDSS. So a few other things we're working on with the Deployment Ready program. We've been working with the Mission Delivery Council and the Field Leadership Committee on a lot of these items. We've recommended that Deployment Ready becomes a certification rather than a recognition. Whether it becomes a certification or recognition is being considered by the Mission Delivery Council now. So more information will be coming out about that. The title and structure of the Professional Development Series, the PDS Units 1 through 7, have been approved by the Field Leadership Committee and Mission Delivery Council, so we are moving forward with those. They have been approved, so we're moving forward. And we've also identified the role of the evaluator and the mentor/coach through the process as well. So we're taking steps to get this formalized. We're still working on parts, but we have some steps completed. Then the last thing I'm going to speak to before I turn it over to Charlie is I mentioned that deployment boot camps are going to become that last check for those that want to become deployment ready. You come to boot camp to get that final check, make sure you have all the skills. So boot camps are going to be attended by those that complete units 4 through 7 and are certified by their supervisors deployment ready. That would put you at the head of the priority list for boot camp. We understand that there are going to be a lot of people coming through that. And one of the advantages of putting the things that we typically do in lecture and boot camp online in units 1 through 3 are that we can make boot camp more simulation and feedback focused. Every boot camp class that we have, the feedback is always, the simulations are great, the one-on-one feedback sessions are great, but we really want more of that. That's really where the value is in meeting face-to-face and coming to Kansas City. So we're going to do that. We're going to make it more simulation and briefing focused because we can take all that lecture out. And because there's going to be a heavy demand for boot camps as people go through the deployment ready training, we're going to try to have more here. We're also going to look at doing traveling boot camps, going to strategic locations. So rather than sending a bunch of people here, sending a few instructors to a location where a bunch of people who are becoming deployment ready can attend the training. That would be cheaper. And also incorporating the IMET-C and the effective hurricane messaging course. Obviously, we want to do as many of these as possible to get everyone through the boot camp. We just have to be mindful of the fact that budgets are uncertain, and running boot camps costs money. So we're going to try to be creative and effective with using funds in order for us to be able to fit inside any budget constraints we might have next year and in future years. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Charlie to go more into the program.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. It's a really exciting program that I know several have been waiting a couple years for now, and the fact that it's coming on September 15th and then deployment ready training coming on December 1st is really exciting. So one thing that we had to think through is how are we going to continue to deploy and provide IDSS on-site embedded support to our partners if you have to go through the deployment ready training in order to be able to deploy. Well, in order to continue our level of service of IDSS, we decided that we needed to grandfather in those who already have deployment experience based off their different experiences. So there were 3 different criteria that were identified to determine who would be grandfathered into the deployment ready program. So all incident meteorologists we grandfathered in, all emergency response specialists, ERSs, that worked at a pilot project office, a regional operations center, or the National Weather Service Operations Center. They'll be grandfathered in. In addition, part 3 here is employees who have deployed to an EOC incident locally. So a lot of employees are being grandfathered in based off of this criteria. Depending on the region, some are also requiring the ICS 300 course in concurrence with having been to a deployment. That varies by region by region. Another option for grandfathering in deployment-ready employees is 3B here, and that's primarily meant for our national centers, our CWSUs, NCEP centers, the National Tsunami Warning Center, Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, and the River Forecast Centers, and also our National Water Center. Because they're at these national centers, they don't frequently get as many opportunities as, say, a WFO would to provide on-site support to their partners, or they don't get any opportunities at all. However, they do provide IDSS via high-impact webinars for high-impact events, and this may be via a video teleconference, VTC. And so that experience would allow someone to be grandfathered in as deployment ready in some of those cases where an office doesn't have the chance to deploy its employees. So those are the criteria that are used to grandfather in employees, and starting on December 1st, it will only be our deployment ready employees who can deploy and provide on-site support. So that's something really important to remember. And you want to check with your supervisor at your office to see if you're deployment ready. You may have had deployment experience in the past, and perhaps your supervisor is not aware of that. Maybe it was at a different office. And these are discussions you certainly want to have with your supervisor. You want to find out what your status is. And if you're not deployment ready, that's okay, because now we have this opportunity for you to become deployment ready for those that are interested, and they can take PCUs, that's professional competency units, 4 through 7 after taking 1 through 3 in order to become deployment ready. So the regions, NCEP, and the Water Center all across the agency, all of our entities have done a great job working with their local offices on identifying who are the grandfathered in deployment ready staff across our agency. You can see a breakdown here region by region, along with 59 employees at NCEP, which is great, 16 at Weather Service headquarters. And we're still working. You'll notice there's 0 with National Water Center, but we have seen interest from the National Water Center recently in getting involved with this, and so we'll be in contact with them. We have a total right now of 904 employees that have been identified as grandfathered in to the Deployment Ready program. Now, those employees will still need to take PCUs 1 through 7. They'll still need to go through this whole program and complete a task book, which you'll hear more about here coming up shortly. There are a few different tools that are out there that our team, the Program Management Office, IDSS training team are currently developing, and that includes the Intro to IDSS course, which you heard a little bit about earlier, updating the IDSS Deployment Bootcamp, making it more simulation and exercise focused, the Mentorship and Evaluation Program, establishing that and defining that. There'll be more coming on that. Starting tomorrow, we have a webinar for all of our grandfathered in deployment ready employees and also for management to learn more about what would be involved with someone who's interested in being an evaluator. We have a guidebook that I'll talk about a little bit more here shortly, a Google site, and also we're having several informational webinars, trying to communicate this in a lot of different ways to ensure that that information comes across and is clear. So as we look at the different roles and responsibilities, everyone has a role that's within an operational unit, and really everyone throughout the Weather Service has a role related to this in IDSS. It's going to touch every employee in the Weather Service in some way, whether it be just taking the Intro to IDSS course or going all the way into a deployment and becoming deployment ready. So we have different roles and responsibilities. So there's the deployment ready employee. That's someone who's already taken the training and is providing on-site decision support services, taking part in these deployments, and renewing their certification or their status with one simulation exercise or deployment annually, and taking refresher training once it becomes available. It's an important part to remember here is if you're grandfathered in, you will have to still take the training, all the training, PCUs 1 through 7, and also you'll need to make sure that you complete a task book, which involves taking part in a simulation. If there's no, ultimately, first and foremost, we'd love for folks to fulfill the annual requirement by participating in a deployment on-site with their partners. We know in some cases because there's a lot of deployment-ready employees identified at the office, or because there just aren't that many high-impact weather opportunities at that office, or maybe short staffing. The opportunity to embed may not be there. So we have exercises out there, tabletop exercises or full-scale exercises you can participate with your partners that are led by our partners. You can use that in lieu of a deployment. And if you can't do that, then we also have that team that's developing IDSS simulations right now that will roll out here with the deployment ready training. And so local office IDSS simulations will be available annually for employees to keep their deployment ready status that way. And for the trainees, which is the next listed here, the trainees to get that experience and use that experience to help them check off items in their IDSS deployment task book you'll be hearing more about. So the deployment ready trainee must complete, they go through PCUs 1 through 3, then if they're interested, it's optional, then they can take PCUs 4 through 7. An evaluator is someone who it will be at that person's office, at a deployment-ready trainee's office, and evaluates their demonstration of abilities and offers them guidance. Ultimately, it's the supervisor's role and responsibility to provide employees with time and resources, offer opportunities to take the training, and send employees to the IDSS deployment boot camp. And it's the supervisor, after you finish your deployment task book, that ultimately signs you off and says you're ready to deploy and puts you on that list for boot camp. Then our regional NCEP Weather Service headquarters designees, they will all maintain the list of personnel for deployment-ready employees and track those resources. So we have a mentor and evaluation program. As I mentioned before, those who have been grandfathered in as deployment-ready have gotten an email notifying them of 2 upcoming webinars that will explain this in more detail. But the role of the evaluator is ultimately to evaluate a trainee's performance and document that in the deployment-ready task book. They should be, an evaluator will need to be deployment-ready or a member of the local office management team. They should provide a safe environment in which to learn, provide mentoring, and even if you're not an evaluator, folks that are deployment-ready can certainly share their experience and provide mentoring to others, and clearly communicate the expectations with the program. They're the ones that can answer the questions, help people through the task book. The evaluators are a big help for that. They objectively evaluate the trainees' abilities, and they sign off as the final evaluator, recommending them for recognition to be deployment-ready, and ultimately then pass that on to the supervisor to sign them off as officially deployment-ready. And this was modeled off the IMEP program. So an evaluator can be another employee that's either bargaining unit or non-bargaining unit. That's going to be up to the supervisor to determine who those evaluators are, but they must already have been deployment-ready. If there is, some offices out there have only identified 1 deployment-ready employee. In some cases, offices haven't identified any yet. We've got quite a range going from 1 to, I think an office has 16 deployment-ready employees now. So if you're on the lower end of that at your office and you don't have a deployment-ready employee that's an evaluator, a member of the management team can take that role and evaluate performance and help you check off things on your task book as you're going through the training. So the next resource that's out there for you guys to find out more information, and this was the one that Jeff had mentioned before, is the Professional Development Series Google site. And here's what the Google site looks like. PCUs 1 through 7 are listed there. You can also you can find out more details about all the PCUs and also access more information about the boot camp and the task book. You can see what the task book, the latest draft of the task book looks like as well. We'll be coming up with a final one here in a couple of months. So that Google site link is at the bottom there for you to check it out. It's a good chance for you to get ahead, see what's coming in the training, see what you can expect. We also have another resource out there, and that's the IDSS web portal. This has been used for the IDSS webinars that were developed by the IDSS conference team. The website for that is listed at the bottom. There will be a new tab that's added to this as for the training resources. That new tab will have all the information about the IDSS Professional Development Series. It'll be a place that lists all the deployment-ready employees and provides a map so we can track our resources, and we'll provide all the information and background about and access to information on this. So the website for that is at the bottom. That's our IDSS web portal. And another resource that's being developed and being finalized and will be delivered here that come this fall, that's the IDS Deployment Guidebook, which the idea of the guidebook is for an employee who comes in completely cold, not knowing anything about IDSS or training on how to develop their IDSS skills in the Weather Service, and it walks them through the whole process of the training, what a deployment is, what that means, where we can deploy, and really walks them through the process of how they can develop their IDSS skills and ultimately train to be deployment ready as they develop those skills. So another important piece of this is the IDSS Deployment Task Book. And we've got Chris McKinney here, who is our our subject matter expert and developer on this in teamwork with Western Region and the Fire Weather Program, Larry Van Bussum. They've done a great job developing the IDSS Deployment Task Book, and Chris is going to tell you more about it.
All right. Thanks, Charlie. So just a little bit of background on the Deployment Task Book. It's modeled heavily upon the IMET program, which in turn has taken their task book from the fire agencies that they've worked with for many years. The fire agencies moved towards a more formalized version of their on-the-job kind of journeyman training program in the early 1990s with developing their position task books for each of the fire positions. The IMET community followed in 1998, developing their first task book, which has been updated several times since then. And even post 9/11, FEMA now is following the example of the fire agencies and developing position task books for all of their ICS positions and their incident response activities. One of the things that's common to both the IMET and the Deployment Ready Task Book are the core competencies. These are overarching skills and abilities that we want people to have to be able to provide effective on-site support. And they are taken from, again, the fire communities have a list that was compiled between all of the federal fire agencies for skills that are necessary for incident management and on-scene activities. And the IMET and Deployment Ready Task Books share the 4 same core competencies, which are noted on the bottom of the slide here. And then if we move into a little bit further into the task book, you can see one of the core competencies is listed at the top of this screenshot. And underneath each competency, we have a behavior, which is a general description of an observed activity or action demonstrated by the individual within the situation. So this is what we want to see them do. And supporting each one of those, we have a series of tasks, which are the specific individual items that they're going to perform to support that behavior and support that competency that we want to see them demonstrate in their on-site deployment abilities. If you move over to the right, you'll see the code column that's marked I and E on this slide. In the IMET task book, there are items that have to be performed on an actual incident, on a fire. There's specific things that we can't do in a classroom environment. Given the large number of people we have going through this training and the amount of oil spills and hurricanes and train derailments and incidents and festivals, there aren't simply enough events that occur outside of the agency to allow us to train everyone on actual incidents. So for the Deployment Ready Task Book, it will be possible to sign off all of the items on an exercise either within your office or if you're participating in an exercise with a core partner at their location, in addition to any incident deployments or planned event deployments that you may participate in while you're in training. And real quick, just talk a quick note about the IMET program integration because I am part of the sub-team for that. The IMET program is serving as the first model of the endorsement program, kind of the advanced training items beyond the initial core IDSS deployment ready training. All of the current IMETs and IMET trainees are grandfathered into the deployment ready program, and they will have to complete the training just as all the other grandfathered employees will do. However, they do have a great advantage in that much of the training that is included in the deployment ready program is already included for the IMETs. They've already done a task book. They will not have to repeat the task book, and their attendance at the IMET CEE will serve in place of the attendance at the IDSS boot camp. So they won't have to complete those 2 items. Most of the training requirements outstanding for the IMET community consist of a few FEMA courses. It's approximately 13 hours of training within PCUs 4 through 7 that the IMET community will have to complete over the next 2 years to retain that deployment ready status for the IDSS program. Regardless of their activities within this program, it won't have any effect upon their IMET certification. They'll maintain their currency with Larry and Boise through that program as they have in the past. Moving on from this transition period, though, once we get into FY18 and this deployment is rolled out, then we will start to require the new trainees to complete the deployment ready training in the PCUs in addition to their IMET task book as part of the training program to become an IMET, and as part of that, they would be certified as an IMET and as deployment ready at the same time when they complete that training.
All right. Thank you, Chris, for that great outline of what's to come here, particularly with the task book and as we integrate with the IMET program. So just to wrap things up here, next couple of slides, we're going to just give you an overview. A lot of new information for all of you, and this is going to be recorded and will be sent out in the next couple of days to everyone to make sure that for those of you who weren't quite sure on some information you read, want to look it over again, or for those who were working shifts or on leave, it's peak leave season for a lot of folks that weren't able to attend these, they can watch the recording, and really we encourage everyone to watch this, as this training will be for all operational employees. So everyone who works in an operational unit, and Jeff outlined who those employees are, will need to take this training. And so those training modules that you've already counted or have already completed do count towards completion. So there are some FEMA training modules in there. It's about 12 hours actually of the baseline training. So if you've taken a lot of the FEMA training, you'll want to look into that because that's already a large chunk of those 26 plus hours that Jeff had mentioned to you all. So that's almost half of the training right there of what will have already been completed. And you have 2 years to complete this training. So all operational employees will need to complete this 2 years from the rollout by September 15th, 2019. And that's professional competency units 1 through 3. So after those who complete PCUs 1 through 3 will have the option to become deployment ready. It's the official training path for deployment opportunities for those who wish to deploy. And on December 1st, that training will officially come out, and only grandfathered in deployment ready employees will be able to deploy. Grandfathered in employees must complete PCUs 1 through 7 by December 1st of 2019. That's important to remember. Although you're grandfathered in, you still have to take the training. You still have to complete a task book. If you're an IMET, you'll just have to do the IMET task book. But if you're not an IMET, you do need to do the deployment ready task book and complete that by December 1st of 2019. If you don't complete that, you will lose your grandfathered in deployment ready status, and you'd have to start over and complete all that training in order to deploy. So this is the last of four webinars that we've given on IDSS training for operational employees, and this recording will be available later. There are, starting with tomorrow on July 20th and on August 7th, there's IDSS training that explains the evaluator program. This is meant as an informational webinar and orientation of what to expect for those that are interested in being an evaluator. And ultimately, being an evaluator isn't going to be for everyone, but we definitely want to make sure folks know what they'd be getting themselves into before we provide more information about what the specifics are and guidance for evaluators. So people will have the chance to express interest and submit that to their supervisor by September 1st. And the release of the training, the baseline training, PCUs 1 through 3, comes out on September 15th of this year, and then IDSS deployment ready training will come out on December 1st. So if you have questions that come up, all of our regional and NCEP and headquarters contacts are very well familiar with this program and helped develop it and listened to a lot of your input and feedback and provided that in the development of this professional development series. And so in the Alaska region, feel free to reach out with questions to Jeff Oshinsky and Amy Fish. In Eastern region, Dave Manning is the IDSS POC to reach out to. I know also Rose Ald and Ken Johnson have been involved with that training as well. In Central region, Mike Hudson and Jim Keeney are the contacts. For NCEP, the contact is Dennis Staley. At Weather Service headquarters, it's Chris Walmsley. I'm the contact under the supervision of Bill Ward in Pacific region. In Southern region, it's Chris McKinney. For Western region, it's Claudia Bill, Matt Sullum, and Scott Carpenter. So if you're in Western region and have any questions, send an email to the three of them and they'll get back to you with more information. In addition, the National Water Center, although they are listed as TBD here, as I mentioned before, there has been interest expressed in helping out and taking part in this, and so we'll work to identify a contact so those employees can be deployment ready as well. So as we move forward here, this is really exciting. A really exciting opportunity for us all to embrace IDSS and see culture change happen and see change in our agency, see our agency evolve right before our very own eyes. Everyone is a part of this effort in helping build a weather-ready nation. And the great thing here is I know some folks have been frustrated with little change, and it seems like we just keep going. It's status quo. For some feel that way in our agency, and this will be an opportunity for us to be a part of that change here over the next 6 months and going over the next couple of years. And so we will see that evolve with this Deployment Ready program, and really exciting stuff for us all to get involved in, and we encourage you all to be leaders in your office in IDSS and embrace this program and training, and encourage others to take it as well, as everyone that's in an operational unit will need to take it. So thank you all for your time. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask them via GoToWebinar. We've got a little bit of time here, and I'll pass it back to Jeff as we're looking at those questions.
All right, yeah, give us a little bit of time here just to kind of look at the questions, and we'll start answering them. First question, everyone. This may be made, sorry about that, it came off my screen. This may be made irrelevant by the 5 through 12 progression if it happens, but a baseline requirement for IMET is being at least a general forecaster. Will qualified enable interns be able to deploy and or be evaluators?
So for the Deployment Ready program, interns that have completed the baseline training and are working through the advanced PCUs in the task book would be able to deploy and train for that. As far as IMET specific, if they need to be a journey or not, and how that changes with the 5 through 12 progression, that's something that would have to be answered by the fire weather program and the folks in Boise.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Number 2, are we going to need to do the boot camp to remain certified? Grandfathered employees, those grandfathered into the Deployment Ready program, will not have to take boot camp to maintain their Deployment Ready status. So if you're grandfathered into the list, you would not have to take boot camp. Anyone going through the Deployment Ready program brand new would take the boot camp. So. Next question, will former IMETs be grandfathered in, and if so, how long ago must they have been an active IMET?
It would depend. That's something that I would get in touch with your local office management or your regional IDSS contact and find out if you've already been considered for that, and discuss that with them over the next few weeks. We still have time to complete the list. We automatically grandfathered in all of the current Type 1 IMETs and the current trainees. So if it's been in a few years, that's something you want to discuss with your local office management and make that determination with them.
Okay, next question. If an IMET has already completed a task book, will they need to complete another or new IMET task book?
No. The IMET task book is the only task book that the IMETs and IMET trainees will have to do.
Okay, thanks for bearing with us. Next question. Will developing and presenting an exercise such as a HUREX or tsunami exercise count for deployment status?
So the answer on this one is it actually depends, and it's up to the local office supervisor to determine if this is sufficient. Particularly the criteria that was read off of participating in an exercise, providing a high-level briefing, or a tsunami exercise. Those in most cases would not, an exercise itself would not count as deployment experience. We're talking about active deployments where you're going on site with partners during events, or maybe a training deployment would count. But as far as an exercise, just an exercise, a tabletop or full-scale exercise, that would not count. Just keep in mind, this applies to our whole agency. So we're talking about our Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, National Tsunami Warning Center, other national centers, NCEP offices, who need to look at this a little bit differently because they have different criteria and different for how they're addressing this, and also they just don't have the same local IDSS opportunities.
All right, next question. Will Weather Service Headquarters be providing GO kits for IDSS like the IMET program?
Yeah, so one of the nice resources that's being developed right now by the IDSS exercise team is part of those exercises include a toolkit of what a checklist for your toolkit of what you would need for a deployment. So that will be available as a resource. So you can take that, and it's editable as a template, and you can adjust it for what your office needs are for a deployment.
Next question, for deployment-ready individuals in rural locations lacking large enough events, will simulations be the only available opportunity for deployment?
Right. So in order to keep your deployment-ready status, if your office isn't deploying because there aren't any high-impact events, there aren't any major events that you guys are providing on-site support for, then we encourage you to try to engage in your partners in their tabletop and full-scale exercises in order to keep deployment-ready status. We also will have the opportunity to take the IDSS exercise simulations that are currently being developed. And, you know, as a trainee, you might not have the opportunities just because there haven't been any major events. So you can use that simulation to gain your deployment-ready status, and then every year you could participate in that simulation to keep your status.
Right, next question. If we are grandfathered in, can we still go to the boot camp as a refresher? So the way that the boot camp is going to work is that those that have completed PCUs 4 through 7 in the task book and signed up with their supervisor will get top priority to go through the boot camp. If there are open spots after all those people with the top priority have been through boot camp or scheduled for a boot camp, there may be an opportunity for a refresher. But that would be the refresher would be a lower priority than those going through 4 through 7 and signed off by their supervisor.
And I'll add to that, the first priority will be those who complete their deployment-ready training. So that there'll be a list based off date of completion to determine who goes to the IDSS deployment boot camp.
Okay, and the last question that we have right now, what about HMTs with impacts training and deployment training in the military? Will they be able to complete the program?
Yeah, so HMTs are eligible to become deployment ready also, in short, and we'll need to take PCUs 1 through 7 in order to gain that deployment ready status.
Okay, we have, right now we're caught up with the questions, so we do have one more question. Hang on one second. All right, next question. Will deployment ready folks be used only locally, or is there an expectation for them to be used, for them to be a regional or national resource?
Yeah, will be used locally first and foremost for those local incidents, local emergency operations center deployments. However, there are going to be times where there's regional scale and national scale events. We're talking the big events like the Super Bowl, like the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. There might be a major regional exercise that's taking place, maybe like Cascadia, that the deployment ready employees will want to get involved with. So it will be up to the region's discretion. Say maybe an office is having an event at their local office and they don't have enough deployment-ready employees. They would have the regional discretion to pull in employees from another office to bring to that office and help provide support. So that would be an example of traveling beyond your office to more of the regional scale. And then at the national scale for these events like the Super Bowl, we've had folks in the past who have deployed from multiple regions for the Super Bowl, and that will definitely be on the table in the future for major major events, planned events that we can think ahead for. So yes.
Okay, we've reached the top of the hour and we've gone through all the questions, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We just want to say thank you, everyone, for spending some time with us today talking about the program. If you have any further questions, please reach out to your supervisors or management in your office or your regional points of contact. They'd be happy to help answer any questions about the program. We will, again, get resources out to all hands. We announce these webinars via all hands, and we will get a recording of the webinar as well as the slides out for everyone to view in case there are those in your office that weren't able to attend. But otherwise, on behalf of Chris, Charlie, and Mark, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we're looking forward to rolling this program out to you. So have a good rest of your day. Thank you.